closer, closer, closer than I've ever been.
Alright, what is up guys? We're back for the third and final part of this CSS tutorial. Thank you so much if you stayed tuned this entire time. We're going to cover a lot in this video, but first, please like this video, and if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. Let's not waste any more time and jump right into it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to cover in this video are floats. I have three identical divs over here, as you can see. Each one has a class of block, a h3 heading, just a regular heading, and then a little bit of sample text from Lorem as a paragraph. So we have all three here identical, and then in the CSS, as you can see, it's over here, these three right here, not this, but in the CSS I have it canceled out real quick, but we're going to go over it right now. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is float all three to the left, as you can see right here. The next thing is we're going to give it a width, which we're going to base it off a percentage because there's three of them, so we're going to give them like a third of the page, so 33.3% for each of them. And then a border, we just gave it a 1 pixel solid border and then a light gray color and a padding of 10 pixels just to keep that text from hitting the border. So if I were to take this out, save it, you can see that they all have the border. So as you can see, they all have a 1 pixel solid light gray border, but there is one big issue here, and it's that they're not all on the same line. And I'm going to show you how to fix that. So since we gave it a width of 33.3%, once we add that 1 pixel, just that 1 pixel to each of them for the border, it pushes it over the limit. So you're going to have to add a property called box sizing, and then you're going to give it a value of border box. So if you save border box, come over here, it should align everything in the same row. Okay, and so the next thing you guys need to know when using floats is that you need to quote unquote clear them after you do an entire row. So at the end of our three different headings here, I inserted a div with the class of CLR, stands for clear, with nothing inside of it, so it doesn't show up on the actual web page. But if you come back over to the CSS and we scroll up towards the top, here is a class that I have of clear, and all you do is put clear both. So this lets the system know that you are going to start a new line so you can insert new floats like we're going to do so right now. Okay, and for the next thing we're going to cover, it's when you want to have like a main article or a main heading and then some text, and then also have either like a side link or a little summary about a different article. And so we're going to do that through having an ID of main block here, because there's only going to be one on the page. That's why we can give it an ID instead of a class. And then also have an ID of sidebar, because that's as well only going to have one on the page. And then for the main block, we have an H3 heading and then some text. And then I just gave a little bit of text for the sidebar just to, you know, show the example that I'm trying to portray. And then if we come over to the CSS here, we can see that I have the ID of main block actually like scratched out right now, as well as sidebar just with a dot, so it's easier to erase when I show you. But let's cover the main block real quick. We are going to start by floating it to the left with a width of 70%. So as you can see here, I broke it down 70-30 instead of 60-40, or you know, whatever your preference may be. But I went with 70-30, and then I gave it a padding of 15 pixels, and then also used a box sizing border box just because we wanted to fit the entire row. And then for the sidebar, we decided to float it to the right with a width of 30%, so obviously that adds up to 100. And then we actually gave it a background color and a text color as well, just to make it stick out a little more. And then also gave it a padding of 15, just like above, and the border box property as well. So if we were to erase these two dots that we have here, save it, and then as you can see, it'll all go in the same row. And so obviously it doesn't look too aesthetically pleasing, but you get the idea. You can do a lot with this technique and just have like your main article. A lot of like news sites have this and whatnot. You have the main article and then some text, and then also have the side article, and I just put a background color just to show you the difference and whatnot. So after this, if we come back to the CSS, you are going to want to do the clear again, so that just clears everything so you can start fresh. Alright, so next we are going to cover positioning in CSS, and this is where it can get a little tricky, so I am going to go over like the definition or a little rundown of all four before we jump into them. And the first one is static, and this is like the default. So if you weren't to label one, this is like where it would fall just by default on the page. And then the next one is relative, and this is where it falls relative to a normal position, but it can also be moved around, and that's what I'm going to show you here in a second. The next one is absolute positioning, which goes from the parent element. And then the last one is fixed, and this is where it stays on the page in the same spot the entire time, which I will show you as well. Okay, and to show this to you guys, I made a little box here with a class of pbox, stands for positioning box, and then I gave an h1 of flat and h2 of earth because the earth is flat. And then if we head over to the CSS, you can see that I just made this box just like a normal standard box, 700 pixels width, 500 pixel height, a border of just 1 pixel solid red, a little margin to pull it down from the main heading and side heading that we just went over, and then I gave it a position of relative, and this is huge for when you bring in the text, so the H1 and H2. They are all going to be relative to the pbox because that's its parent element. And then also just for looks, I brought in a background image. It's very easy to do. You can just pull it off the internet, give it a name, which I gave bluebackground.jpg, and then insert it inside the URL parentheses here. Okay, and so these two classes that we're looking at here, the pbox H1 and pbox H2, are dotted out right now just so you can see what the default would look like, the static positioning. But if we were to take the dot out of each of them and saved it, it's going to push it from the left 200 pixels for H1, which is flat, and then from the top, so really downwards, 150 pixels. So if we refresh it and come over, you can see that this is pushed from the left 200 pixels, from the top 150 pixels, and then if we look at H2, it's going to be pushed from the right 50 pixels and then from the bottom 50 pixels as well. So when it says right, it's actually pushing it to the left because it's adding the padding, like the pixels to the right of it. So it's kind of like counterintuitive, but you catch on. And so then the absolute property allows you to space elements wherever you'd like within its relative parent element. So it's really useful when you want to place stuff in certain areas, so just keep that in the back of your mind. Okay, and so the next thing I'm going to cover is a button that is going to be static. So I actually have it commented out right now, but if we were to take that out, I can show you that it is a button, and we refresh it, you can see it right here, and all the buttons, because I had that global style in the previous video, are going to have that hover effect of the red, so that just applies to all of them. But I did add in a button, and it's actually a link here, so I can click it, and I'll show you in a second where it goes. I just gave an href of my YouTube channel, so actually if I were to come over here and click it, it's going to go to my YouTube channel. So if we're almost at 500, please subscribe. We come back over, then we can see that it just says hello, and I added it on the outside of the container just because if I were to put it up inside the container, it would be in that 90% range here. So we wanted to keep it on the full left side of the page. And this is very useful when you want to add like your social icons and whatnot to have people link to like your Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever you'd like. And then to show you guys the actual fixed position, it's very simple. You just put a position of fixed, and then you place it wherever you'd like on the page. So if we only wanted it 200 pixels, we can save it, and it's just going to push it upwards, but no matter where you scroll, it's going to stay there because it's fixed. So that's really cool for that style of positioning. And so the last thing I want to discuss with you guys is something called pseudo classes. So I just created an unordered list here with a class of my list and added 10 list items. They're all exactly the same, but pseudo classes allow you to target certain like elements on that list through CSS. So if you come over here, I have the class my list and then the li, and you can give it a pseudo class of colon and then first child. So this is gonna target the first child of this entire element. So the parent element is the UL, and then all the child, quote unquote, are all 10 LIs in here. So you can do whatever you'd like with these pseudo elements, but I kind of just wanted to show this to you guys in a easy way to understand. So I just changed the background colors on all of them. So for the first child, I changed it to red, as you can see over here. And then you can also do last child. So you just put colon after the element that you want to target, which is are the LIs. And then you do last child, I change it to blue. Okay, and then so you can also target certain elements through the wording nth-child. and then I have it as the 6th one right now with the background color of yellow, but let's just say when change it to the 4th, it'll just go up to the 4th right here. So this comes in handy when you just want to target certain elements or certain list items of an entire list, because they can get kind of confusing when you have more than, let's say, 4 or 5 items, and here we have 10. Okay, and so that pretty much wraps it up for part 3 of this series. Thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you watched all 3 videos. I know we covered a lot, but if you just rewatch it and drill it into your brain, I promise you will understand it. We're actually about to move on to some more advanced stuff, including diving into a certain programming language. I'm not going to tell you what yet, but we'll also make some websites here and there. So let me know what you want to see in the comments down below. Please like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great day.
Closer, closer, closer than I've ever been.